threatening us with war. Well, I wish I had the power for such a thing. Because some people may believe it. Putin has no intention of going to war. He knows if he waits long enough, he will get Eastern Europe without firing a shot, like he did in 1945. I mean, you have to remember, we're talking about Europe here, not the EU, our continent. This is our patch. There's a war on our patch that we haven't seen since 1945, and an invasion, a subjugation that took place years ago now, it seems, when Putin invaded Russia. We can't just ignore that. So when you hear the Russian leader come out and start talking about the... oh, Chloe's back with us. It's interesting. The Russian leader come out and start talking about war, and he's ready to go to war, you do have to kind of like scratch your head a little bit. Chloe Dobbs is back with us. Well, she was there all the time, apparently. Let's go to this story, Chloe. David Lammy, he's not going to be out of the headlines anytime soon, revealing plans to halve the jury trials, of course, from 15,000 to around about 7,500, so halving them, essentially, shifting many cases to magistrates' court. Only 1.5% of all cases are heard by a jury under the proposal, and magistrates' sentencing powers rise to 18 months, potentially 2 years. New sort of Canadian-style swift courts aim to cut hearing times by 20%. Let's have a listen to the Justice Secretary.
Sir Brian estimates that they will deliver justice at least 20% faster than jury trials. And whilst jury deliberations remain confidential, judges provide reasoning for their verdicts in open court. So this will hardwire transparency into our new approach. I'd like to clear up some misconceptions that colleagues unfamiliar in this area might hold. In England and Wales, magistrates have long done the vast majority of criminal cases. That was true in the Victorian era, it's right through to Winston Churchill's time, and today magistrates hear about 90% of criminal cases. In fact, only 3% of trial cases in England and Wales will ever go before a jury.
David Lammy, now it feels like an old story now, Chloe, but it's not going to go away, of course, because all the contention around this is still there. There's a lot of angry people, and there'll be a lot of innocent people who are hoping, well, actually, I'll be able to prove my innocence in front of a jury who will be told, sorry, you won't get that opportunity.
Yeah, you say it seems like an old story now, and that is because Lammy sort of tested this idea by leaking it out to the press at an earlier date, I think, to which most people said that's a silly idea. We think that the jury is a very unique thing to this country, and we want that as a part of our justice system, even if that means that we still have a large backlog. Yet he has still gone ahead with it, which I think is a bit surprising. But we know that Labour aren't really the best at listening to the public and what they think. I mean, look, there are merits on both sides of the argument. I understand the point he is making about wanting to cut down the backlog, because there are a heck of a lot of people who have waited a crazy amount of time for their court cases, and that has a extremely difficult mental toll on people who are living it in purgatory, not knowing what is going to happen to them and their lives. But I do think keep juries. I think that a lot of people worry that this would be the beginning of the end of juries. So even if this is just going to, well, I mean, cutting the number of cases going to jury in half in the first place is still quite significant, but some people think that that would be the beginning of the end, and they would completely phase it out if they see, oh, this is a great way to cut down the time, the backlog for cases. But I think all you're going to need, Ian, if they do this, is a few cases going big in the press where they would have had a jury before David Lammy's changes, then they didn't have a jury, and then it looks like a miscarriage of justice, and that is going to infuriate people. And one point that David Lammy has been making is the need for there to be faith in this country's justice system, and he thinks that his move is going to help restore faith in the justice system, but I think it's going to do the opposite, because I think people might see more cases where they think that a rogue judge has acted alone, an activist judge, and there hasn't been an opportunity for members members of the public, the jury, to look at it with an outside perspective.
OK, let's move on then to this
otherwise.
story, Chloe. Nigel Farage telling donors to expect, and this is really interesting, telling donors to expect a deal with the Conservative Party, though he denies this publicly, of course. Options apparently, I don't know where this came from even, include a Johnson-led mega party. Well, surely it would be a Farage-led mega party, you would think, or some sort of cooperation pact. Nigel Farage insists any move will be on his terms. Conservatives currently polling at 17%. Reform are always in the high 20s at the moment. 3 ex-Tory MPs joining Reform over the last few days, raising big fears over a right-wing split. It's worth having a listening to Richard Tice, second in command over there at Reform UK, on what he said about a potential deal with the Conservatives.
In one sentence, with one question, imagine I'm Noel Edmonds, Richard Tice. Deal or no deal?
No deal.
Oh, there you go. No deal. That is it. That's all we get. I thought he was going to go into a really nice monologue there, Chloe, about the reasons why there could be no deal. Of course, politicians will always say that. I know Richard very well. I'm sure he absolutely means it in the moment. But you can't help but wonder, when you really crunch down on the numbers, is the only way the Conservatives can win an election, that Reform can win an election, is by doing a deal with the Conservatives?
I don't think that is the case. I think we've had so many polls come out showing that Reform can do it alone, and they still have several years left to get their ducks in the row and watch the Tories dwindle and die even further, right? But so it makes sense for Reform to, for now, say we don't want to do a deal with the Tories. We want to do it alone, and it's very important for their brand to show that we are different to the Tories. We are not just going to become the Tory party with a different name slapped on the front of it, and hence they need to be careful with the Tories that they allow in. They're very careful about which Tory defectors they allow into the party. But let's be realistic, right? If it came to it and we had a general election and the result was that Reform could form a government by doing a coalition with the Tories, or they would have to hand the keys to number 10 to Labour. If that is how the result came out, of course there would be some kind of deal. But let's be honest, which party, looking at the polls, the past 100 odd polls that we've had, which Tory is going to end up with the most seats, Reform or Tories, is probably going to be Reform. So the idea that it would be a Tory in charge of this coalition,
yeah, that's
Reform
the bit.
would be,
and also,
especially Boris Johnson.
Why would it be Boris Johnson?
It
Because
wouldn't
he's
be
not
Boris,
even an
because
MP.
they are furious with Boris. Remember that they stood aside previously to allow Boris to get his mega majority, and they felt like he squandered Brexit and he completely failed on immigration, two things that the Reform Party really care about. So I don't know where that rumour has come from, but I'm a bit sceptical, Ian.
I do wonder, however, that I mean, it won't be a Johnson-led anything, as you rightly say, Chloe, but I do think that it would be... I know the polls are very generous to Reform, but when you look a little deeper, I think most commentators, it would be extraordinary if they got an outright majority. They will do very well. They'll probably be, based on the current situation, probably be the leading party, which would mean they'd have to do a deal with somebody. Now, they're not going to do it with the Green Party, are they? So one would assume it would be the Conservatives, but that's never decided until the day, of course, but we will watch with interest. Chloe, thank you very much. As ever, Chloe Dobbs with us, Conservative commentator.